Hey guys, welcome to another episode of my fitness and mental health podcast with me, Coach Rupert Wilson. Today I'm speaking to Fiona from Neom Divorce Coaching.
Thank you. Yes.
Good. And we're obviously going to talk about some divorce stuff. If you're married or not, this is still going to be a good lesson. We're going to talk about all things as well. Also talk about fitness and how Fiona's used it. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
But generally just have a listen, see if it helps you. It may help somebody you know, so then you can send it along to them. And so we already sliced into a few things while setting up the cameras and getting everything ready. Yeah. That you do already have your own podcast.
I do have my own podcast, yes.
You are online and you coach people.
I do, yeah. I coach women and I coach online mainly. I think that's the wonders of COVID almost, that it, I'm sure, completely transformed the landscape. I wasn't actively coaching prior to COVID, so I've only ever been online.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not that it's just better for you to get more reach that way as well. It's not that you wouldn't sit down with someone, but then let's get into that then. What is divorce coaching, or what does it look like then?
It's a big question. I would say that divorce coaching is probably slightly different for everyone, but effectively it's a emotional support structure for women who are impacted by divorce, or that's the way I look at it. That's the type of coaching that I do. So I will work with women who are in the very early stages of divorce, or women who are far out of their divorce, but are really sort of stuck and struggling to move on. And it's very much kind of the emotional piece around divorce, because divorce is fundamentally a legal process, but it isn't just legal. It's really emotional, and people can tie themselves up in knots. And my own experience of divorce, mine from start to finish, from kind of the very first conversation from my ex-husband that actually I sort of think I might want out of this marriage, to the point where it was done and we'd been through family court and all the rest of it, was 4.5 years. And that's 4.5 years of my life that I'm never going to get back. And I believe, with the power of hindsight, I had a lot of legal support during that time. But if I'd had the emotional support, if I'd had somebody kind of pulling me out of the emotional intensity of the process, I reckon that time frame could have been halved. And I had lots of great family. I had wonderful friends. Nobody else had been through what I was going through. And I still felt pretty alone in the process. So I've become the support that I wished I'd had all those years ago.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. So should we get into let's get into some of the, I'm going to ask questions. So one of the benefits of me having ADHD and obviously being a coach is that I love to ask just the simple questions. I want to just ask like as if I didn't understand anything, because I basically don't. Because half the time, whether I'm thinking about the noise outside or balloons, it's like, well, what did I eat today? Or did I do my hair? Then I'm like, so 4.5 years, and you're saying that we can cut that down to 2.5 years. Now, my interpretation of anything would be that there's probably a link to a marriage, is going to be obviously a link to a relationship breakdown, as well as a business. So you've probably got those two sides of it as well. You've got the financial, the business side of it, because often a marriage, especially when you have kids, turns into a transactional relationship sometimes. Who's doing pickups and drop-offs, and then who's paying for this and who's doing that. But you obviously talked about the emotional side. So for me, that immediately brings up, I think it's the 7 pillars of like grief, or like how you move on from something. And you obviously help people through those, because, for example, if I was getting divorced and I was going to get stuck, I bet you probably get classic things of people saying, well, hold on, what if we try again? Or hold on, maybe I'm being too harsh. Yeah. Yeah, they sound like classic questions.
Yeah, absolutely. They are classic questions. And I think I don't know if what you're referring to is the grief cycle. So
thank you, that's
the whole kind of like transition of it being a non-linear journey, and you start out in, I can't even remember the full cycle, but you kind of go from, deep sadness to denial to, all the rest of it, and then eventually come out the other side with acceptance. And that's definitely a part of it for sure. But I think also that it is about, there's a few things that everyone who's getting divorced could do better ultimately. And it's things like focusing solely on the future, not the past. Focusing on where you're trying to get to, not where you've come from. People spend so much time locked in the past. Oh, but I had this, we had that. I must hold on to this because it was this, it was that. And actually, those are the sorts of things that tie people up in knots. Those are the sorts of things that create this like huge emotional trauma that people just can't let go of. And actually, when you're coming at it from a really future-focused position, it's much easier to say, actually, maybe that's not as important to me. Maybe that's not the priority. Maybe I need to focus on this. And so there's that part of it. And then there's also what people just don't realize, how much they're sort of putting in their own way. They're sort of tripping up over themselves. They're staying locked in these deeply emotional conversations. And actually, even though divorce, as I said, is emotional, the quickest way through it is to treat it as a business transaction and to try and remove the emotion from it as much as possible, to remove the emotion from conversations with your soon-to-be ex, and to make sure that you surround yourself by people who aren't kind of keeping you constantly drawn into the drama and drawn into the conversation, because it just keeps you stuck. And so when you have someone on the outside who is completely not impacted, not connected, not invested emotionally in your life and in your future, they and that person, can sort of say to you and highlight things and sort of, ask questions. Do you think that's important for now? What do you think about this? Do you think this is helpful for where you are now? Is it where you're trying to get to? Can you see this communication is hindering you? There's lots of different things that you can do to try and actually blow the whole thing wide open. And a lot of people say, especially women, there's nothing I can do. I can't impact this. He's in control. He's got all the power. I am just sort of along for the ride, basically. And that literally breaks my heart. And it's not true. But we're all fueled by these limiting beliefs that just dominate every part of our life. And actually, it only takes one person to change one small thing for the whole trajectory of a relationship or a divorce to change in the end. It's one small shift that will change the end game dramatically. So we all have far more control and we all have far more impact than we believe. And I think it's empowering women to believe that and to see that and to understand that, and to then encourage them to actually take the actions and be accountable for what they've said they want to do.
So what do these one things look like?
So it's things like, if you feel that you're trapped in a communication loop. So, he's saying one thing, you're going back with another, he's saying this, you're going back with that. What this is like, it's a tit for tat conversation. Somebody's always trying to get the last word. Somebody's always trying to defend themselves. Somebody's trying to over-explain a situation or whatever it might be. And actually, if you've got a lot of communication coming at you, the simplest thing to do is just to shut it down. And, you have to decide, do I need to respond? Not every piece of communication needs to be RSVP'd to. So you can, just because someone's sending you loads of stuff doesn't mean you need to reply with loads of answers. You can reply to the things that are necessary, that are important. And if you've got kids, you keep it all very child focused. But in terms of all the wider conversation about things that just keeps people dragged down, you have to find a way to sort of distill that and to discern what requires replying to and what doesn't. And sometimes when you're in it, that's just completely impossible to work out on your own. And it's where the outside kind of voice comes in.
And do you think that sometimes not saying particular words about one partner or the other, but do you find that one person could be more trying to trap you in a conversation because they want to forever drag it out?
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible.
Or somebody's more narcissistic. That was the word I was leaning towards, because often when I speak to some of my clients, or people, they say oh, I didn't, I felt like it constantly the driving for control. It's difficult. And even to say, so for example, if I was to relate it to my clients, right, to say that you have an issue with food, right? You have a control issue with food. So therefore, to admit to you, oh, I have a control issue with my partner, it's a big step to say out loud. It takes a lot for somebody to be that honest, to say, even to a coach, to say actually, you know what? I can see this controlling behavior, but I've got no power over it. I'm powerless to control it. And then,
Yeah, no, definitely. And look, narcissism and narcissist and all that sort of stuff it's like big buzzword in society at the moment, and it's especially prevalent in the divorce world. And I think the way I look at it is that none of us who are using these words are really qualified, I suppose, to diagnose these personality disorders. And I think that we're all on a narcissistic spectrum. Everyone has an element of narcissism about them. But the reality is that by calling your soon-to-be ex-partner a narcissist, you are actually just giving them power. They are growing in stature in your mind. You're creating a fear barrier for yourself because you're saying they are an unpleasant person. They've got no empathy. They've got a deep need for control. They are manipulative. They're gaslighting me, all these things. Now, all of that might very well be true. That is actually a reality. But let's look at it from a different way. It's like, if I'm on the receiving end of these behaviors, what is it that I can do differently to protect myself? Can I show up differently? Can I communicate differently? When you say, oh, my ex-partner's a narcissist, my ex-husband's a narcissist, my ex-wife's a narcissist, you're basically just saying, like, here, have all of my power. There's nothing that I can do. And that's kind of what I want to turn on its head, and to sort of bring the focus back to the client, to my client. And I work with women. So it is, unfortunately, I think, more prevalent that it's men who get...
Oh. See? See what I said? Oh, no, it's nothing there. Oh, just went lights out Gorilla Radio. I'm like, okay. What happened to you, little guy? You're really good at this.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's what we wanted. That's the best one. Internal temperature, hot.
Oh, right, good.
Yeah, that's dead. That's not good.
That's not happening.
No.
So what do you do now?
Fucked.
Put it in the fridge?
Yes, I've done that. Do you want a bottle of water?
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Sparkling or still?
Still, thank you.
Yeah. God, tell you what. I know, obviously, it's hilarious. You're going to laugh at me, right? But you're really, really good at this. Like, you're so passionate and deep about all your topics. I'm just
thanks.
like, fuck. Like, she's really going for it.
Is it too much?
No. I'm
Okay.
just making sure I ask a decent question. Don't sound like a complete idiot. Like, okay, so internal temperature is too hot. That's recording still. So we still have audio. We still have visual here. And this one's gone down as well, which is fine. She thought it was going to happen.
Your GoPro's still flashing, so...
Yeah, GoPro's still good. He's still in business. And this little guy's going to work. I'll probably unplug him. I'm going to stop that there. Okay. That's a shame.
That's mad, really. It doesn't actually feel that hot in here.
Yeah, it's maybe because it was charging at the same time. Which I shouldn't have done. Yeah. Okay, alright. We just roll on. We don't need these anymore either.
No?
No, these ones can come off. Good. So the best thing is, this little desk has its own chips in it.
Okay.
So you could just do a podcast like this with no video.
Right.
And it will still, this thing is about as bomb-proof as possible. It's literally chip, microphone, constant recording.
Amazing.
Ready to go. So, here we go.
Here we go.
What were we just talking about? You were saying...
We were talking about narcissists.
Yes, I love that. And the way that you said, I probably need to relax a bit more. Yeah. The way you said, basically, so we were talking about narcissism before the camera overheated.
Yes.
You're right. Like we shouldn't just. Everyone does it as well with ADHD. Yeah. Or a bit of a controversial one, which I'll peek in for my clients and stuff is, I've always been big boned. I've always been bigger. You know, you're giving it more power.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was also, to me, it sounds like as a coach, it sounds like you're almost admitting failure to start with, which we're all guilty of, because we all don't want to put on the line that we want to try and do something and we want to try and win. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's also because I suppose it's just a natural harboring of our emotion to say that if I didn't try, then if I fail, I can say I didn't try fully. But when it comes to divorce, there isn't trying, is there? Otherwise, it just lasts. It can go on forever.
Well, yeah, I guess in theory it can go on forever. I mean, there's lots of variables, obviously, but there's generally always one party who kind of is pushing it through more than others. And
what, just out of interest, what is that generally for? The top, I know it's a bit cheesy, but the top three things is obviously one person wants to move on with somebody else. One person wants the money separated. And then is there like a third one that they're just, or it's actual anger and like it's got to be over?
I think there's a lot of bitterness and there's like the betrayal side of it.
Okay.
I think that probably drives quite a lot of people and just wanting it to be done. But the truth is, when you're in it, when you're living in the middle of a divorce, if you've got any kind of sanity about you, it's not a place you want to stick around in.
No.
It is difficult. It is sad. It is big. It is change. There's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of fear associated with it. And why would anybody want to prolong that, really, if they didn't need to? So I think I can't
because one person's going to be more. What if it was a surprise? I mean, I suppose this is why you've got 10 episodes of a podcast, because I've already got like 5 episodes I could ask you for anyway. But what if one person's more attached to the other person and they're not willing to accept the divorce to start with? That's going to obviously take a couple of months to deal with. If it was a surprise,
yes,
not like a surprise birthday one, but like
not a fun surprise, woohoo, everyone's here. Not that. Yes, you're right. I think that, look, these divorces can come about for many different reasons and many different ways. The reality is, if one person, the divorce laws in the UK changed a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And that means now that we have no-fault divorce, which means it is not possible to prevent a divorce happening, assuming you meet the basic criteria for getting a divorce in the UK, which is that you were married in the UK and that you've been married for a year.
Yep.
And beyond that, one person in the marriage can apply for the divorce, and there isn't anything the other party can do to stop it. So you either at some point engage with the process and get on the road and get through it and get out the other side willingly, or you'll be dragged along. And, dragging along would probably inevitably involve court and things like that if you're not willing to kind of join the table of conversations about financial separation and things like that.
Okay. And then I Googled this the other day, just out of interest, but they're obviously with this no fault, okay, that also doesn't now affect any financial. There's no because there used to be some kind of strange rules about like if one person had cheated on the other person, they were definitely going to lose all of like the money and like, oh, you were going to have to pay if you tried to move on into a relationship. So therefore people are like, oh, I can't have a new relationship till my divorce is finished. Because I won't get it, because then I'll have to give him or her more money. Do these old things like...
I think that the truth is, even though with the change in no-fault divorce, the outcome of a financial separation would not be different in the old style of divorce or now. It's not really connected. What is relevant is if you, before your divorce is finalised, if you buy a property or move in with a new partner and you haven't agreed your financial separation, then your ex or soon to be ex could try to bring the fact that you are already fully set up, rehoused and sorted into the kind of conversation around needs, i.e. I'm going to take more of our asset pot because you're clearly okay and fine, if that makes sense.
Thank you. That's what I was... needs.
Yes.
Right. And do you have episodes on things like this, like on these classic, like big topics like needs or like who's going to... financial settlements and stuff like that?
No, to be honest, because the conversations that I have on my podcast are with women who are through their divorce. They're out the other side. They're living a better life. And the idea behind the podcast is to really inspire and give hope to women who are in the trenches, who are either thinking, I really would like a divorce, but I'm just so scared to start it because I just can't ever imagine that there could be something better on the other side, or they're in it and it's hard and they're struggling and they just want that beacon of hope that actually it is going to be okay and it is worth it and they just got to keep pushing. So we do talk about the difficulties that the guests on the podcast kind of had to overcome and things that they went through during their divorce itself. But it's more light on the divorce and heavy on the better future. Okay. So we kind of don't get, and because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a financial advisor, I need to be quite careful about, the so-called advice that I'm maybe purporting to be giving in a wider space. So we touch on it if it comes up.
Yeah. So then let's go into the trenches then. Right? Why not? Let's get into it. So you can either, you bring in as much of your own story as you want to. I'm obviously not going to, I'm just not question time. But what is it like, what is the trenches, and what can it look like, for like somebody listening who's thinking like, right, if I pull this pin, will I end up in the trenches?
Yeah. Okay. Do you still want me to look at the camera, by the way?
No, you can look at me too. Okay. I mean, I was asking you a good question. My editor's going to leave that one in. See, you can see that we are just real people trying to like share real information with you. It's not all got to be glistening and like your amazing content, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And you're there every day. By the way, if you don't follow her, like you're there every day, like turning up, which is also incredibly hard to do.
It is hard to do. It is hard to do, slightly soul destroying. But at the same time, when you get the engagement with women who are struggling, we're going to talk about the trenches, then it feels really rewarding. And, I set Neom up a couple of years ago because I refused to be defined by my divorce. It wasn't going to be the thing that was this big, like, black mark on my story. And if I could turn my kind of pain into purpose and into something just much more positive, then I was going to do that. And I'm very fortunate to now be able to help other women get through it. But back to your very good question, the trenches. The trenches are tough. A lot of women that I work with certainly have children. And, kids are this very emotional piece in divorce. And kids are, for some women, what fuels them to get out, because they are determined that the roadmap and the blueprint of a relationship that they give their kids is not the marriage. For others, it's what keeps them trapped, because they believe that if they leave, they're going to ruin their kid's life, that their kids are never going to be okay, that maybe their kids will never forgive them, that, maybe they'll be fucked up forever, or, whatever it is. And so when you've got kids, you run high on the emotional narrative that whatever you do, you're screwing them up. And as a mum, and as a dad, obviously, but from my position as a mum, we're hardwired to protect our kids. We want to make sure that we're doing everything for them, that we're providing them with the life, that they deserve, and all this kind of stuff. And so I think that, that is a really difficult one. That's certainly part of what it feels like to be in the trenches, is that constant fear that everything that you're doing is just going to have this really negative long-term impact on not just your life, but your children's lives as well.
Yeah. Because even at schooling and stuff, like I can feel that as a father, it's like, oh, if my daughter's not reading well enough now, does that mean she's forever going to not be able to read, or will she have ADHD like me? And then yes, I am a child of divorce, and like it does. Will then she then have those effects? Then I can see the foreshadowing. Yeah.
How old were you when your parents got divorced?
3.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember a life when you were all together?
No. Medium.
Kind of.
It's like
fleeting moments, maybe.
Yeah, possible. Yeah. I mean, it's probably more just like, it was something that was there.
Yes.
Yeah? Good question. It's hard. It's very hard to be. And did it have a shadowing effect later? Possibly. Did it get worse? Possible. But you can't foresee that, because it was also probably undiagnosed ADHD. Not probably. It was undiagnosed ADHD. And within all of the drama of that, when you are supposed to have a stable environment in order for you to learn and develop, you're going through these quite complex, difficult conversations with your parents. And at the same time, you build an emotional resilience to it, but you also build perhaps an emotional strength in avenues that you don't need. Do you know what I mean? So if you imagine, like, I suppose I'm quite visual. So if you imagine a tattoo of like veins and stuff, you're growing those veins in areas that you didn't need to as quickly.
Yeah.
And therefore other veins are not growing as strong. So things like reading, writing became fainter, and things like being able to talk to adults, being able to explain situations that were way above my pay grade at that age became very strong. So hence I'm incredibly good at negotiating difficult situations. I'm incredibly good at people pleasing in ways that's negative and positive. But was I good at other things? Possibly not as strong as I could have been, you know?
Yeah.
However, you do eventually, for those of you in the trenches, you do eventually come out of the other side, no?
Yeah, of course. And just, you know, to give a very brief other overview of the trenches, you know, fear of financial future. You know, if you've been a stay-at-home mum and all of a sudden, you know, you're being told by your soon-to-be ex that, you know, he's going to take everything and you're not going to get anything, like that's a really scary moment, suddenly becoming responsible for your own finances, having to get bills, having to maybe go back to work, or, you know, all of those sorts of things. You know, you've got a lot of other people's opinions. You know, like having kids and, you know, other things, there are some topics of conversation that everybody just feels invited to have an opinion on.
What about, so the other two is like, what about the shame?
Yeah.
So shame, like from Game of Thrones. And then the other one I wanted to ask you about is, what if the one person still didn't want the divorce and was in love?
Yeah.
That's even more like harder.
Yeah.
Like the actual, you know, it's all good. Everyone like now talks about it as if we're all buying cars. Oh yeah, Thingy's getting divorced. Like you said, inviting them into somebody else's conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I must know about divorce because my friend Jenny got divorced.
Yeah.
So, no, you probably don't have a fucking clue what Jenny went through.
Really. But, you know, everyone's got an opinion on it. And I think shame, as you said, is massive. And shame is something that breeds in silence. And when you don't have a safe space necessarily to talk about it and to talk about how you feel and to sort of get strong again, it just like weighs down on you, you know? And yes, people wanting, so one person wanting a divorce, the other person not. I mean, that's pretty common. There's obviously certain situations where people kind of reach a conclusion, maybe sort of together reluctantly, but it's very, very common. My experience with the clients that I work with and my own divorce as well is that it's very, very unusual for both people to be on the same page at the same time in the same place. So one person is always slightly further ahead than the other in terms of like emotional thought process around it, you know, practical thinking or whatever it might be. And that's ultimately, it's that disconnect is what brings up the difficulty. If you were always working together and you had this amazing communication, and, you know, the irony of divorce and good divorce is it requires communication. And the fact that you're getting divorced probably means that you didn't have it in your marriage. So it's kind of unrealistic in many ways to assume that you can just suddenly become these two perfect versions of yourself in order to get through this process. Anyway, that brings up its own kind of difficulties and challenges along the way.
What? Sorry.
Well, just like arguing, disagreements, lack of trust, you know, unpleasantness, cruel comments, silent treatment. I mean, it can
and then
anything.
the kids come back into it, because that's classically where you hear from people who say like, oh, and you just think, oh fuck, that's just not the way to play it. Yeah, because don't leverage a kid into the conversation, you know? Yeah. And I think hopefully, and I'm probably talking completely out of my arse here, that with everything that's happened from the 80s through to now, from when my divorce, that you'd hope that people are trying to not do that as the last thing, you know? Or not.
I think you'd be surprised at how many people still are. Yeah. And it comes back to that control thing, is that once you have financially kind of worked out your financials, once you're actually divorced, once, you know, things are sort of moving forward, anyone that's got control issues will realize the only way they can still gain that control and they can still have that control is in relation to a conversation about the children. And so they do become easily weaponized, sadly. And it's something that I hear a lot about. And it's a very difficult situation.
And so if I was talking to you about that as my coach, it's just got to feel good to be able to talk to somebody, because there must be those points of the day where you're just like, am I crazy? Like, read this text message. Am I? Because at that point, you're so in the trenches. It's been going on. You've been trying to find a new house, or you've been trying to deal with all this other stuff. And then you get this message and you're like, am I reading this right? Or is this person being an absolute
arse?
Yeah, arse. That was a much better word than I was going for. Mine started with a C.
Yes.
Sorry.
And then with a T, I'm sure.
Yeah, you're really good at podcasts.
I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of freedom in the conversations that I have with clients, that they know that they can say pretty much anything to me. Well, I hope they believe they can say anything. And chances are I've heard it all before. And there's no judgment. But also, it's an opportunity for me to validate their experience and to say to them, look, from an outsider's perspective, this is what I see. This is what this sounds like to me. Like, these behaviours they are actually a form of abuse, potentially. You know, emotional abuse is hugely misunderstood and misrepresented. And there are all sorts of other behaviors that are going on that will make people think they're going crazy, will make people think they're going mad. And those behaviors are being done on purpose for exactly that reason. Because if you're going crazy and you're going mad, you stay small, and that person can get what they want and it suits them. So, you know, and the easiest way to make someone think they're going crazy and mad is when you bring the kids into the conversation, because then you kind of get this whole like protective thing as a parent coming up, but then someone's questioning and suggesting that you're doing something wrong with your kids or whatever it might be, and this whole thing just blows. You know, it's just like this furnace of like ever bubbling stress.
Okay.
And so yeah, I think having somebody to be able to say, having someone to be able to talk to and just say, how do I reply to this message? Like, look at this stream of messaging. What do I do? And how
would that be different to a counsellor or a psychiatrist? Because often before we had divorce coaches, you know, and similar with PTs, you know, you just had a PT, because I'm going to get fit, but nobody wanted to talk about the emotional trouble within how you got so unfit or how you got so bigger or whatever, because then it was like, okay, if you have an eating disorder, you speak to a counsellor, but they don't really, they learn such a wide broad spectrum. So how would then having a divorce coach, it's like seeing a specialist.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, coaching, in the type of coaching that I do, is action orientated, it's future focused. So we're all about doing things to get a better outcome, to get a better result. Exactly the same as what you're doing with exercise. With counselling, it's slightly more passive. You know, it's more about a gentle conversation, and it's more about unpicking the past to inform the now. Yeah. Whereas coaching, and certainly the type of coaching I do, and I've done somatic trauma-informed certifications, so I do kind of go back and we do look at things if necessary in order to not just inform now, but it's like, actually, what do we want to do to move ahead in a different way? So it's not just kind of a sitting in the past conversation for the sake of understanding it. It's like, this has happened. This is why I feel the way I do now. So what am I going to do differently about it? What is in my control? What can I do to get to a place where I feel better about things? Or, you know, whatever that might be. So I think, yes, it is. A lot of people, I think, do still speak to counsellors and to therapists about divorce. And I'm all for that. If that's your jam, then go for it. But if you actually want to take control of your own life, if you want to understand what's going on, and if you want to be the one who is making that change for you and your children, then I would say get a coach.
Love it. Love it. Brilliant. So your mission statement. So because I was saying how much I'm going to just use a bit of that mission statement this week, because it's so good that you've helped ladies in divorce already, and you've really honed down for Neom that you just realize that one of the biggest pillars of it is that you must just move forward. Stop like living in the past. And I was mentioning to you that, yes, okay, it's from my fitness world, it's okay to like look at the past a bit. Like, okay, you had a busy job, you've reached success, right? You've got the promotion. Yes, you've had to put some things to one side. So you've put aside your ability for like fitness and exercise, which also for you in your divorce, you mentioned to me before, like that was probably the last thing you thought about wanting to do was like go to the gym and hit a treadmill. Yeah. During
my divorce, one of the years, I mean, obviously, as we said, it went on for quite a long time, but one of the summers of my divorce, I think I ate a mozzarella ball and drank a bottle of rosé. That was my evening. Got my kids into bed and I sat down, mozzarella ball, bottle of rosé. Thanks. That was my life. Yeah. So no, my physical well-being and kind of looking after and fueling my body and exercise and any of that. I mean, it could not have been further down on my interest list, let alone my to-do list.
But then if you were thinking about the future, rather than like sitting with the wine and thinking I've survived the day, which is also totally allowable as well. Yeah. What would you have told your past self then about like how to, like how did you suddenly then start training again?
I think I would have said to my past self now, like, honestly, think about the type of person that you want to be in the future. And I've got there and I am really proud of where I am. But it's taken a lot of time and it's taken a lot of hard work. And it's taken more time and more hard work because of all of the roadblocks that I put in my own way back then. And, you know, waking up in the morning with a slightly fuzzy head and being faced with all of the endless decisions that are required, not just in life, but divorce brings up a lot of decision-making requirements. And needing to be able to think clearly and to have slept well and, all of that kind of stuff, that was gone for me. And I was sort of numb to it because I was doing it so regularly that I probably didn't really realize that I was reducing my capacity for those sorts of things. But actually, it does make sense. And if you can nurture yourself, if you can be kind to yourself, if you can fuel yourself, you'll be in a much better place to face the difficulty that is divorce. And, there's no way of sugarcoating it. It's hard. Even if it's amicable, it's still hard because you're still breaking up a life. You're grieving a future that you thought you were going to have. And it's a complicated process.
And why do you think people get divorced? And then I caveat though with another part of the question, which is, do you think people get married too quickly? That's my question.
I don't know that people get married too quickly, but I think, and certainly from my own experience, I think people get married not knowing themselves. And if you don't know who you truly are, how do you know what you need? And if you don't know what you need, how the fuck is your partner ever meant to work it out? And so, we bring in a lot of our own kind of stuff to relationships, and we magically imagine that by being married, all of a sudden it means that we've got this perfect future and, this person's going to do this for us and we're going to do that for them. And it's a lot of it is unspoken. And actually, life goes on. Maybe you have kids. People have job stress and financial worries and other outside pressures. They put the weight on the marriage and the cracks start to appear. And I think we're all quite quick to blame these external things as a reason for a marriage failing. But I think the majority of the time they fail because people haven't been able to articulate what they need and what they want, and also what they're able to bring, like what their own limits are. And I know from my marriage that was the case. When you were talking about your parents and that your parents got divorced when you were 3, my parents stayed together. My parents were together. My mum died 7 years ago, sadly, but my parents were together. But during my own divorce, I realised my parents should have divorced years ago.
Right.
Like years ago.
Okay.
They were not happy. They were not connected. They were not emotionally intimate. Forget about anything else. Like, they weren't connected on an emotional level. They weren't a partnership. They were just functioning as two people in a family unit. And so keeping
up with the Joneses. Well, not that,
not
but,
even keeping up with the Joneses, just accepting that, like, my dad went out and made the money. My mum was a housewife. She did her thing. He did his thing. Mm-hmm. They rarely did anything together. Mm-hmm. They didn't have common interests. They weren't excited to spend time with each other. They didn't support each other in that kind of way. Yeah. So as a child and as a young person, I'm witnessing all of this dysfunctional relationship, thinking this is a great marriage. Like, I thought I had the fairy tale childhood. And I thought that's what a marriage looked like. My mum did all the home stuff and my dad did all the work stuff. Now, when I went into a marriage, I was working, and I worked all the way through my first marriage, and I still work now. So it's not that I'm just a homemaker, but on a very basic level, I thought, well, I'll make the decisions about what colour we paint the walls and kind of like curtain fabric and all that kind of stuff, because that's what my mum did. And my ex-husband was like, well, no, I've got an opinion, and we're doing it my way, by the way, because he had that control side of things. But I was just like, this is odd. This isn't what I thought it was going to be like. And so my parents' dysfunctional relationship, although I thought it was good when I was a kid, ultimately contributed to my marriage downfall, because I didn't understand. I didn't have the roadmap of what a healthy, communicative, emotionally receptive and respectful relationship looked like.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy. So from my point of view, it'd be so easy to say, like, I'm going to do everything to keep my marriage going at the detriment of it being like having a difficult conversation. So I'm sure you could get lots of people that would be people pleasers because they came from a divorced parents, so therefore they're like, oh, I'm married. The one thing I don't want to happen is what happened to me when I was a kid. So therefore I'm going to keep hold of this marriage. And again, it's almost like that inception of it just keeps creating another world on top of a world kind of thing. Very interesting that. And then the other one I was going to ask you was, tell me what is the I laugh when I say this because my wife is going to watch this, and if she does, then she'll be like, the fact that you asked that question is just so obvious.
I can't wait.
Yeah. What is emotional connection? What is like the emotional? You said it a minute ago. You said it's not just, what was the word you said?
Emotional connection, emotional intimacy.
Emotional intimacy.
Emotional intimacy for me is ultimately being able to share everything that you're thinking with your partner and knowing that they'll listen, not judge, not berate, not blame, not haul you over the coals, not highlight all your flaws, but actually listen and say, yeah, fuck that shit, or that's tough, or I hear what you're saying, or what should we do about it? It's that emotional connection. And it's, yes, feeling safe enough emotionally to share your worries and your fears, and to know that by doing that, you're going to grow together and make your relationship stronger. And I think that there's a lot of that missing in a lot of relationships, if I'm being truly honest.
Where does the secret start though? Like where does it come because you don't want to let your partner down? You don't want to tell them that you're having a shit time at work because you think they're already having a shit time at home with the kids. So therefore you start micro secrets and micro lies because you're just like, Yeah,
I think there's a part of that. I'm 46. So for people my age, I think we were brought up by parents who didn't really do open communication necessarily. My parents never told me that they loved me. And they did love me, and they showed it in other ways. But now, as a child who didn't receive that, I overtell my kids that I love them, like all day, every day. It's kind of the love language of, I love you. Yeah, I love you. No, I love you more. Yeah, no, I love you. And I think that there's, communication has evolved over time. And now we've all got access to all of this personal development stuff, to all, online stuff, Instagram, we are literally drowning in content and drowning in information. But it was different back then. When my parents were my age, they didn't have that. They had a newspaper or,
Hello
first
Magazine.
Time of computers or maybe Hello Magazine.
Well,
whatever.
For the gossip side of things.
Yeah.
So because then equally, like no one would have a coach like you to watch some videos on and realize that they're being gassed there, or they're in a trench that they don't need to be in, or they're living in shame that they could move on from. People probably think stigmas around divorce, similar to stigmas around gyms, that a divorce must be messy, it must take forever, they're never amicable, or I must remain in a relationship forever because, again, back to the stigma around the kids.
Yeah. I think so. But what I was kind of going with that is that I think it's actually a language problem. And if you haven't been given those language skills, if you haven't been taught those language skills, those communication skills, those like naming emotions, like quite basic stuff by your parents, like you don't suddenly wake up age 25 and think, oh yeah, I know how to talk about how I'm feeling. I understand what I need. I've got needs. I matter. That was all missed out for a lot of us. And if those foundations aren't there, you get whipped up in the excitement of a relationship. Like, your friends are getting married. Like, everyone's starting to kind of get engaged and all this kind of stuff. And, you meet someone and like, it feels good and you're having a great time. And then like, all of a sudden they propose to you and you're like, oh my God, yeah, of course I'm going to do this. But you're not really thinking and you're not saying to them, okay, I like this idea, but how are we going to deal with conflict? Like, what does it look like in the future if one of us can't work? What's going to happen here? Like, what are we going to do when we have kids? Do you want me to be a stay-at-home mum, or are you expecting me to go back to work? These are the sorts of questions ultimately that everyone should be asking. Do you like
a curry on a Friday night, or do you prefer fish and chips?
Yeah.
Because then you get 5 years down the line or 8 years down the line, that classic one of like, the husband never told the wife that he hated fish and chips. I never said it. No.
It's so true. And it's like, it's the love language thing as well, which I think is really simple, but also really powerful. And if you know your own love language, that's great. But you also need to know the main love language of the person that you're in a relationship with. Because if your love language is words of affirmation and you want to hear that they think you're amazing and that you look gorgeous and that you're so this and you're so that, and all they're doing is like buying you a beer or buying you a wine, or here's a bottle of rosé, darling, or here's some flowers. And you're like, fuck the flowers, I fucking hate flowers. Yeah. Just tell me I look great, or whatever it is.
Or my wife is, so I love cuddling, which is
physical touch,
and she loves
acts of service.
Yes. How did you know that?
Well, you know,
you knew it was coming.
Role, yeah.
And then
and so they misfire, and you know, you're like trying to hug her because you love her and you want her to feel like that, and she's like, can you just empty the fucking dishwasher?
And that's the meme that we send to each other now.
Fine.
It's that one meme. I honestly, I have that on my phone. I could show it to you.
I believe you, but it's things like that. It's so basic, and it's fine to have a different love language. Like, it's good to have a different love language. But, you know, when you give your wife a hug, hopefully she realizes that because you guys joke about it and you talk about it, so you have the awareness. She knows how you feel about her and that you care and that you're there. And because you know that acts of service for her is important, I'm sure you do more acts of service than you would automatically if you didn't know that. Well,
okay, so a bit of honesty around that. And there was one other thing I wanted to ask you afterwards about a weekly meeting.
Yeah.
While that comes up. But so I have issues with addiction. So I am an addict, and whether or not I enjoy saying that or not, and I do, because it's something you have to come to terms with, like the shame and the grief. But when you are an addict, your main thing is to protect your addiction. Mm-hmm. However, that has a side effect, which is acts of service. Okay. So unless you're an actual bastard drinking like lunatic, you are then forever constantly making up. Okay. So I was doing acts of service to hide my drinking. When you become sober, you suddenly, like getting divorced, you suddenly go, fuck this, I want to do all these cool things I never did before. And then you got to try and explain all of that. And so then if you ever have this come across your desk as well, that people who go through sobriety and go through changing their addiction have a real struggle. After that initial breakdown and that rebuilding, about 6 months to a year later, you'll also start to see cracks in a marriage appear, because that person suddenly isn't the person that the person maybe married if they were an addict when they married.
Yeah, sure.
And it's totally freaking scary. Yeah. Because suddenly you're like, I want to move to Nicaragua. Yeah. And you know, or I want to become an online coach. Yeah. And I want to build a gym and I want to help people. And then they're like, hold on, what the fuck are you doing now?
Yeah. And I think it's that mask thing, and it does go back to narcissism as well, is that when you marry, if you marry a narcissist, or if you marry someone who you end up believing might be a narcissist, let's put it that way. Like, if they showed up that way before you got married, you wouldn't have married them. Yes. That's the reality. So you're buying into something that you see in the moment. And at some point down the line, and I hear what you're saying in terms of addiction as well, is that mask slips and ultimately the real person reveals themselves. And depending on what that reality is, it can put a lot of strain on a situation.
Weekly meetings.
Yes, I have them every week.
Do you?
Yes.
In your new marriage?
My new marriage.
Right. Yeah. What do we, are they, so they're not just a buzzword. For those of you who don't know, there's obviously, it's kind of a buzzy thing for like, what are we now? We like, we're not millennials.
I've lost track of what we are, but no, definitely not. I'm definitely not millennial. We're Gen Z.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a Gen Z. I'm not
41.
Assuming. Okay, 41.
I smoked a lot of weed when I was younger, so it makes me look younger. Okay. Because I slept for like 16 hours a day.
Unreal.
Because I wanted to be a drummer in a band, so it was my excuse. Anyway, so weekly meetings, or at least some form of an actual check-in.
Yes.
And what does that look like, or what to you? And then I'll see if I'm doing mine right.
So ours are diarised for every Sunday at 4:00. And or maybe 5:00 actually. And it's in my phone, so it pops up every week, as like a reminder. And they don't always happen in that moment, but we will try and have them every week. And for us, it's about, what have you got coming up this week? Where are you? Like, what's going on for you? Do you need me to help out with anything? So I'm remarried and I live in a blended family. So I've got my 2 children. My husband's got his child. His son lives with his mum most of the time. My kids live with us most of the time. And so even though Sean, my husband, is a stepdad, he's still very involved in my kids' lives. And so sometimes he's taking them to school, or, if I'm going into London for work, he's, picking them up, it's just that it forces that, actually what it does is it removes the assumption that somebody is either going to do something or nothing. And it gives us that space to say, this is what I've got going on. I'm dreading my week. I've got so much to do. And he can say, okay, fine, I'll cook dinner every night this week. Just don't worry about it. Or whatever it might be. Because I am in the process of being reformed superwoman who like has to just do everything and has to do everything really well. And I'll be a martyr to it, and I will hold my hands up and say that, and it is not healthy. And, you know, I'll do all the school runs, I'll do my job, I'll walk the dogs, I'll do all the washing, I'll do all the cooking, I'll do all the food planning, just to prove to myself that I can do it all, because nobody else is interested who does it, as long as it all gets done.
Right.
Whereas for us, so I think the weekly meetings for us are about, okay, well, this is what I've got going on, this is where I'm at. I'm out this day, I'm off here, I'm doing this podcast recording, or whatever it might be. We know where we are. We're just giving each other the awareness of what we've got going on, what we've got coming up, what the week looks like, what we need each other to do to help us out. And it's just that forced communication, which means that you're not allowed to get on that sort of snowball of just no talking and no awareness about what's going on for the other person.
Yeah, and then that's where you get the little things of like, well, I did this for you and you didn't do that, and then you didn't even know that they'd done that, and then that starts the resentment. Yeah. Or the little
definitely
to-do list, or the the score list.
Yes.
Yeah. And then what also do you find? It is obviously, you know, great to say we speak about our emotions all the time, but it is hard to like have a shit day at work, come home, and then you've got two choices, because you can like tell your partner, I've had a really shit day at work, or you can still be so wrapped up into how shit the day was that's normally then something will trigger it and then whatnot. So it is tricky. I find also on top of that, I suppose for me, especially because I'm very neurodiverse as well, I try to also make my catch up as well, is also like, these are the things that went right for me this week, and these are the things that didn't, that I'm going to try and avoid next week for going wrong.
Yeah.
But then so I do find they work, and you do notice when you don't have them that it starts to get stretchy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And some people take it, you know, one step further as well, and I have heard about couples who talk about, you know, one thing that you did for me this week, which I really appreciated. One thing I would really appreciate it if you did do this for me. Can we try this, or can we try that? And it's sort of there. That's, I guess, a deeper level of emotional connection, which can be positive. Ours are more practical, definitely.
Yeah.
But for us, that practical thing, because we have a very good emotional connection, I think partly because we're both divorced, we both really understand what it means to value a relationship and the work that needs to go into a marriage to keep it going. It is something that needs to be constantly worked on. So I think we're both very good at that anyway, by virtue of the experiences that we've been through.
Explain me a little, just go on into that a little bit then, because it's almost like, I bet you in a couple of years' time, you'll find that once you've done divorce coaching so well, you'll end up just being straight up marriage coaching. Yeah. Who knows? You'll start rebuilding marriage, because obviously, but so just give me some good thing. Obviously, communication. We clearly know communication.
Yeah, communication is important. I think it's thinking before you speak is a big one. There's lots of things that I want to say to Sean at times, and I think about it before I say them, and I often decide not to say them, because I realise that they're actually about me, but I'm making them about him. I'm trying to blame him for something that's really my issue.
Okay. That's deep.
Yeah,
that's good.
And Sean is undiagnosed, but pretty sure he's got ADHD, and he annoys the fuck out of me with it. And he uses it as but I'm ADHD, and I want to punch him. And there's a lot of, there's thinking, that I think there's thinking time. You know, there's a guy called Jefferson Fisher, and he has written a book all about communication. I think it's called The Next Conversation is his book. It's brilliant. And one of the things that he says is always make your first word a breath. So like before you say anything, just breathe and just give yourself a pause to think. Do I want to say this? If I say this how it's about to come out, is it going to land really badly? And so I think giving yourself an opportunity just to think about what you want them to hear and how best can you say it in order that they hear it how you want them to hear it is like important.
And that can even be small things.
Very small.
Like super small things.
Yes.
One of the problems, and I hate to say the ADHD, but also just being observant and maybe not breathing. My wife jet washed the garden the other day, and honest to God, the first thing I said was, Oh, you missed a spot.
Missed a spot.
And that's not because I'm trying to be an actual dick, which I was like, you did it again. I literally caught myself and I went, and then I tried to quickly scoop over it and go, but that is actually concrete that I'll paint.
Yes.
It's so easy to, and if I just left it there and just said, you know what, that's brilliant. Yeah. But it's tough.
It is tough. It is hard. Yeah, no, it is hard for sure. Other things are when your partner pisses you off, or when they do something or say something or whatever, and it affects you, find a way to talk to them about it. Like that, Sean and I do that. So
don't do silent treatment.
Don't do silent treatment. 100% don't do silent treatment, and don't, do the passive aggressive. I'm fine. I'm totally fine when you're clearly not fine.
Yeah.
And because that just breeds resentment. It breeds like mistrust. I talk about all the things I'm scared about. Like if I'm starting a new coaching program on Friday, and it's like I'm slightly obsessing over it, and I'm really scared about it. I'm nervous about it.
You're doing a coaching.
I'm starting a new coaching program on Friday, group coaching program, and so I'll talk to him about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's silence allows things to grow. It gives power to things that don't need to have as much power as you're giving it. Whereas once you start talking about it, and once you get the support of somebody that you love and that somebody that cares about you, I think, it is a bit of a cliche, but I think a problem shared is a problem halved. And I think that, those sorts of things are useful. And those sorts of things, I think, keep us emotionally connected on like a daily basis. So that need for a weekly emotional check-in isn't there as much. Like, we definitely need the practical check-in. Like, we definitely need because with Sean's ADHD, he's fully in his zone. Like, he is just in the zone of Sean and what he needs to do. And I'm like, hello, there's a whole household here.
Right.
So
but then because of your superpower, your superwoman power, you then either it's not martyrdom, but you then carry it on.
It is a bit of martyrdom.
And then you find burnout faster, and then you suddenly explode.
Yeah, I suddenly explode, and he bears the brunt of it.
Right.
And so definitely trying to break that cycle. And I also think that I'm very fortunate to have met somebody who is on his own personal development journey. He cares about growth as a person. He wants to be a better person. He wants to be a better dad. He wants to be a better husband. And I feel the same. And that has born from our experience of divorce and the difficulties that we went through with both of our ex-partners, and all of the stuff that we've had to sort of face, to accept, to overcome. And we both realize genuinely like how much we have to lose. Like, he is my person and I don't want to lose him. But if I don't do the work regularly, I might. And he knows the same, the flip side. So I do think that there's something really powerful about two people who meet later in life with no pressures of children, no pressures of kind of the early stages of kind of first marriage, maybe. And we're really clear on what we want and where we're going. And that's a powerful thing. And that's something that we're fortunate to have. I'm not saying people don't get that first time round, but we definitely didn't. And so we are fighting to keep that and working to keep that.
Good.
Yeah.
Nice. So then finally, we can sort of just go back to, so your coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can obviously find you on Instagram.
Yes.
But you obviously, through that, you just want to now help. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think if I had like a motto for my coaching, it would be divorce isn't the ending, it's just the beginning. And I can
see that on a t-shirt. I think that'd be great.
I'll think about that. Maybe go into the merch game.
Yeah. You don't have any merch yet.
I haven't.
You've got to get. Yeah.
Got to get merch.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Or you can say like something. This is okay. You can say like, "I got it sorted by Neom." Yeah. And then everyone will be like, "What does that mean?" Yeah.
Okay, this is food for thought for sure. Yes.
I got half.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Yes. Okay. Fine. This is something I need to think about. But yes, divorce isn't an ending. It's just the beginning, and it is the beginning. When you can see divorce as jumping off point for possibility and the starting point for something better, and an opportunity to it's a second chance. It is an opportunity to create a better life with far more self-awareness, with better understanding of yourself and others. I think that's amazing. And I don't think people talk about that enough. So that's what I'm here to do.
And that is basically, just to summarize it all is that you just had that turning point, that burning point where you'd got it sorted out after 4.5 years. And then you just went, I want to do something about this because there's not enough help out there for people.
Yeah. And it was COVID actually. And I found myself at home like the rest of the world. And I was sort of thinking to myself, God, I really hate my job. You know, I've been on the treadmill of life, just existing and working and parenting and all the rest of it for so long. And all of a sudden I wasn't there anymore. And I realized that the only thing that had kept me there for as long as I'd been was my colleagues. And I was missing them and, you know, that kind of connection. And I just thought, what else can I do? I'm not sure I can go back to doing this in the same way that I have done for the last 20 years, or then it was maybe 16 years or whatever it is. And so I just thought, you know, what can I do? What do I want to do? And this whole divorce thing had always been in the back of my mind as I don't want to be defined by mine. Like, I don't want it to be my story. It's one chapter for sure. And it's a really important chapter because it has made me the person that I am today. And I'm a far better human being as a result of my divorce. I'm a better parent. I'm a better friend. I'm a better wife. And I was like, I've got shit to help people with here. I can be that person that I now realize I needed back then. And yeah, so that was 5 years ago. And I've done years worth of different trainings and certifications and started just doing general coaching. And then I was like, no, actually, I really want to get into divorce. I really want to help women that are facing divorce or impacted by divorce, to believe that their life will also be better. And that's what I did. And that's where I'm at. Good.
And that's where I found you.
Yes.
So obviously follow online.
Yes, please.
Listen on Spotify or other podcasts as well.
Yes.
And if you want to have a chat, best way to do it is what?
DM me on Instagram, probably at neom.divorce.coaching, or you can contact me through my website, neomdivorcecoaching.com.
Perfect.
Amazing.
And then just follow, like, and subscribe for the good.
Please follow, like, and subscribe. The podcast is called the Divorced and Better Podcast. And it's inspirational stories and conversations with women who have been through it, are out the other side, and living a better life.
Fantastic. Wow. And it's been absolutely an amazing pleasure doing this today. A little bit hot for our camera, but those of you, obviously share this with anyone you think it will help, and keep listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube, and follow me on Instagram, and I will see you guys all very soon. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Rupert.